This is a Hot Pie Original.
Hi, and welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. I'm your host, Amy, and my purpose is to be in service with my voice and to use that to help us all transform our lives into our best versions possible and get our lives as rocking as possible. And today I am beyond excited to welcome two of the most amazing women that I know, Caitlyn Howe and Vylana Marcus, and they have such an interesting story to their friendship and sisterhood journey. And I cannot wait for you to listen because you are going to take away so much. I have so much to process after this conversation, and I'm really just excited to share it with the world too. It's the first time that they've told their story, and it's so shining and gorgeous and incredible and inspiring and hopeful and loving. And so I am stoked. So let's do the things, a little bit of business up front too. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please do. It's at amyedwards.com. And I also share the books that I'm reading, what our meditation is this week, and some freebies in there. So please do. And you can stay up to date on all the episodes that are coming up. So thank you so much for being here. I'm just immensely full of gratitude. I love you so much. So thank you. Let's get to it. Hello. Okay, let's jump into the episode today. Like I said, it's a badass, amazing conversation today with Vylana and Caitlyn. They're incredible. I'm just so excited to learn from them and that they were so open to do this today. So huge thanks to them. First, let's talk. I lit some Palo Santo. I just need to just be in my space and share with you today a little bit. I've been thinking a lot about signs, and especially after Aline Henley was on, I believe it was a couple weeks ago. And I thought a lot about what she said about, signs, money, things pointing me in the right direction. We played that game, Cosmic Compass, that she invented. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's really amazing. And as I progressed after that episode, I got to thinking about signs and all the things she said and my own resistance and really looking at that. And I feel like everything in my life, no matter if I'm looking at social media, maybe it's all the people I follow, I don't know. If I'm looking at social media or if I'm, even listening to the shows that I listen to or the Audible things that I listen to, talking to people like Aline, no matter what it is, I feel like all these things are telling me the same thing. And they're like, just completely trust, let go, bet on yourself, know that you are going to be taken care of. Know that you can operate from this place of deep security and love within yourself, and you can allow. And I was like, I need one more sign that this, I went on a walk that day and I was like, I need one more sign. Just show me one more sign. And then a little part of me was like, really? Do you really need one more sign when this is everything that you're being told? I love this song by Gwen Stefani. What you waiting for? If you haven't heard it, I love it. She's like, she's literally asking herself, what are you waiting for? You've got all these things going on. What are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? To lose weight? To have a good hair day? For our relationship to be perfect? Are we waiting for just like feeling better? Perfect time? I don't know. I don't know what we're waiting for. I don't know what I am waiting for. I feel like I was waiting for something though. Like I just can't yet. I just can't quite go all the way yet. Well, news flash. I'm sure this isn't that much of a news flash. None of us are getting any younger. And the other day I had a weird sense that I don't usually have where I can't remember what happened. I don't know if it was my relationship or what. Something happened. And I had a moment where I was like, oh gosh, I'm almost 50. I'm too old. I'm too old for that. And I caught myself. I was like, oh, how dare you think that? Because that goes against everything that I talk about. We're never too old. We can continue to go for it. And yeah, I had to catch myself a little bit. And I had to just lean back into believing and that I can manifest anything and allowing and just going back to what are you waiting for? Like time is a ticking, So what are we waiting for? What are you waiting for? You're sitting here listening to this show. So if you're not there yet in that deep, just allowing of trust and self-love and the signs that you're getting all the time, including right this minute from my voice in your ears. Like, what are you waiting for? What are we waiting for to drop this old bullshit that we're telling ourselves and the fear and all the other stuff the stories that we tell that we pretend are true, that we pretend we have to listen to because I'm being realistic. No, your signs are all saying, try this. Try it. Anyway, I'm making the point that I was having that resistance the same as zillions of other people. I do it too. And I guess I just hit a wall to where I'm like, what am I waiting for? Everything is telling me to do this. Give in already. Just give in. Just go for it and allow. So I'm doing it. And there's, I've been talking a lot about paradoxes. There's a paradox in every single thing. And I think the paradox in this is that you allow, you truly believe, that you are taken care of. And at the same time, you deeply love this point in time that you are in, like this podcast, for instance, I'm just having to lean into, this is my true calling. And I completely trust that I'm going to make a living at this. And well, my goal is to be the biggest female podcaster in the world. And so, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust that that's my purpose and that's what I'm doing. And I'm here to serve with my voice and that's what I'm doing. But at the same time, the paradox is, okay, can I just love this moment of the process, right? And not be beating myself up that, oh, I'm not there, or I'm not good enough to have already achieved it, or I'm too old to get there, or whatever the fucking story is that we're going to tell ourselves or try to tell ourselves of what we're waiting for. No, I got to have this right. Oh my gosh, I got to figure this out first. I got to have my social media like this. No, you don't. That's just another excuse of something that we're waiting on before we just fully surrender and go, not only do I love this point, but I am just dropping all the rest of it. And I'm loving the bigger picture and trusting completely. And then you sigh, big breath of relief, just like that. And you surrender. And you know what? You can believe it. You can go for it. You can stop waiting. And everybody's going to be cool with that. Everybody else is wrapped up in their own shit anyway. I guarantee it. So it's okay. We just go, yeah, let me just try this. Just an experiment. Just try it. The hell? Why not? I'm big on experiments. All right. Speaking of just leaning into what we're supposed to learn and signs that we're getting, we're going to move into today's conversation. I am so excited because since I met these two, I heard that they had a story that sounded very interesting and like something I could really learn from. We could really learn from. And I invited them to come on the podcast together and they said yes. And we finally today made it happen. And it exceeded all my expectations. Woo! Just had a moment where I got a little emotional, felt some tears because it is so beautiful. And I really just admire and love these women, and their hearts are open and in such the right place, and it shows, and they are just shining lights. I know I'm gushing because I really do love them, and I am so stoked to share this story. So it is Caitlyn Howe, and she goes by the Poet Queen on Instagram. You can find her there and online too. And Vylana Marcus, Vylana, and that is her handle on Instagram as well. And I highly recommend following them both. They are just such lovely souls, and they are willing to go to the depths and own their feelings and learn from them. And one of the most beautiful things that I pointed out at the end is that immediately when I asked their relationship and how they see each other now, Caitlyn, one of the things she said was teachers. We're teachers of each other. And what a beautiful thing, because we really are all learning from each other. Every single person that we encounter has something that we can learn from, has something to teach us. And what they share today is what they've learned from each other, what they've learned from themselves. And we are so fortunate to be able to learn from them today. So huge thanks to them. Again, I will put links in the episode notes, and please follow them. And Caitlyn does have an invitation at the end to continue this conversation on social media. So I do encourage you to reach out to our posts about this show, or you can email me to amy@amyedwards.com, and I would be sure to share it with them as well. And so any questions that you have, I would love to hear too. So, because I'm sure a lot more came up, and it's just very thought provoking, and it left me thinking a lot about some female relationships and any relationships really, but pointedly some friendships that I probably need to do some work on. And that is a good thing, a really, really good thing. So thanks in advance to Caitlyn and Vylana. I'm so excited to share this with you today. Let's get to it. So here, let's just do this too. Okay, so you were celebrating your birthday, and it was 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
But not even quite.
2019, not even fully. It was August, beginning of
Is
September.
Is our sound good too? Yeah. Our sound's good? Okay, good.
August, beginning of September of 2019. Like lowest point of life. And if you would have told me then where we would end up, not even 2 years later, I would have been like,
I'm glad you said that. What would you call you guys' relationship now? Like sisters, like best friends? Like what would you call it? What would you call you guys?
Man, I mean, I feel there's a soul sisterhood for me. Like and it's so encompassing of all of the things that sisterhood is, someone who's always there, but no matter how physically close you are, a teacher, a challenger sometimes, and an inspiration and a sense of family. Our relationship has been one of the most dynamic, and unexpected gifts in relationship that I've ever had.
Well, I think like so many times we look to our love relationships as like these big transformative things, but it's like our female friendships.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little choked up because I'm thinking of my own, and like our female friendships are these ones that bring so much out of us.
They do.
And the way you guys, I don't know the story, so I'm really excited to hear it, but just that's the sense I got that you guys were that close, just from everything you've said and observing y'all in the short time that I've known you.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like such a story worth sharing, and what all women can learn from it.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
I mean, we've been to the depths. Like we have mirrored in each other.
Well, an actual fist fight,
I can speak for myself. Like in our relationship, it has mirrored my deepest darkness that I needed to face off with and learn how to integrate and learn how to love. And it's funny having gone, into that incredible sense of contrast and polarity with each other. And then to be in this place of making it through and finding so much love. That's the thing that's interesting about the dynamic is if you have that much tension or challenge with somebody, the love that also exists there is equal on the other side.
That just gave me chills.
If you're able to move beyond, your triggers and your wounding and the struggles, like the equal love. Yes, it's worth it. The equal love is on the other side. And one of the funny things that she said recently at her birthday, we'll get into the story, but one of the things that she said that I loved, you know, when we're just celebrating her being born and we're in rainbow costumes and you guys are there and we're having a blast. And she like grabbed me and held me and said, like, what if it was about us all along? The dynamic came through, you know, being in partnership with the same man.
Yes.
But like, what about it? What if it was really about us all along? Which is really,
we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, maybe this is jumping ahead, but something that's just really struck me in this relationship was there was so much resistance to one another at one point, so much that I was even though we always had a friendship, we started, and we'll share the whole story, but we started as friends to begin with, and then had these relationship triggered challenge points and, you know, got into this dynamic of more, competition and jealousy and judgment. And that, you know, kind of cast us into opposing positions. And then we hit such a rock bottom with that I was like, you know, I was kind of fighting for the friendship, you know, even through the darkest points. But at that point, it was like, this is just something that I have to let go, and it's over. You know, this relationship is destroyed. And then, as fate would have it, you know, she ends up, you know, quickly falling into this deep partnership and sacred union with my former fiance, my best friend, who I've already bound. You know, I am committed to him as an ally for life. That's like the container that our friendship exists in. And so
it's beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And when this happened,
an amazing progression in itself too.
Yeah, it's been a wild saga. It's been beautiful. But when this happened, it was unique. Like,
that's for sure.
It was like, oh, how interesting that the one person that I was resigned to let go, that I thought we would never repair, we are now in circumstances that bind us to each other. So that gets me curious. It's like, why all of this energy here? What does life want for us that we are finding ourselves again and again in circumstances that bind us? And so that just opens me up to curiosity and excitement. And that, you know, that question of what if it's all about us? You know, we always want to make it about the partner, the guy, you know, and it's like, no, like maybe all of this shit is just conspiring to bring us together in our power.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So let me hear the whole thing. Let me hear what happened.
Oh my gosh. How do we even begin? I mean, I guess you should probably do storytelling, because my storytelling is like ping-ponging in circles. I'll chime in whenever it feels appropriate.
So I met Vylana at Burning Man 2016. We had an instant
connection,
harmony. Like, I remember I was at a different camp. She was staying in the same RV with her now husband, Aubrey, and his current partner, Whitney. And I was besties with them already. And I was huffing it across the playa every day to meet my friends. And they were with this whole new group. And Vi was the one person who I felt like really, like, one of the first things she said, she told me how pretty I was.
She came in like, the first time that I met her. So I had met Aubrey and Whitney already like earlier that evening. And all of a sudden, this total babe with a light up faux hawk and like these hot leather pants and like a vest and just like incredible, like swings the door open and is just here. And I'm like, it was a moment. And I'm like, who the fuck is this girl? I love her already.
And so when she was like extended herself so kindly, I was like, I love her. She's a cool girl. She's nice. She's confident in herself. You know, I felt that resonance right away. A couple weeks later, Aubrey invites her and a few other people out to Peru to sit with us for a medicine ceremony. And again, it was like I was drawn to her. I saw her, you know, we walked into, makes me emotional remembering it, but we walked into the jungle on one of our ceremonies, and this was the beginning of her spiritual path. If you guys follow her, know her, like she is
absolute very beginning. I was like nightlife, bottle service, you know, total not spiritual environment or practice whatsoever to like jungle.
And it was
medicine.
This was right around
instant.
30 for you?
This was 2029.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
25 for that.
instantly clear with her. She walked out of the group and crouched down, and she had braids in her hair. And she's just sitting there in reverence, and you can feel it like a magnet, like the energy is just around her. I'm shaking, remembering it. And she stands up, and she has like tears just coming down her face like an angel. And she's in such connection with the, the elements and the medicine and everything. And I was again, like, I bow, like, this girl's got something really, really magnetic and special to her. And I wrote about it in my journal and everything. And then, we lived in different cities at that time. I was still living in Las Vegas, actually. She was in LA. I go back to Austin, and I get involved romantically with one of our friends. And they had a connection on that trip. So their connection actually sparked first, but it didn't really go anywhere. They were both seeing other people. And then as those relationships evolved, he and I got involved and got into a very close, intimate relationship. And this kind of danced back and forth a little bit. Like initially, he felt still a big pull to Vi and communicated that to me, which triggered a lot of my wounds, because my wound was not being chosen. And so it was like suddenly this woman that I really was drawn to and, admired, loved, felt like connected with instantly. I immediately started feeling that wound
like in
relation to her. It was like seeing her felt like
threatening.
I'm not,
inferior. Like
I'm not as good,
enough.
and almost like even I think a big part of like the feminine wound is like when you admire somebody, like when you're jealous of somebody, there's admiration built into that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it takes work to align to that and not to sit in your victimhood with the small ego that's going, oh, I admire that. So I'm jealous. And now I have to be better and I have to compete and I have to assert my dominance. And so that was like my interior dance as their relationship came to be. And then they entered into partnership and she moved out to Austin. And so but I can look back and see that so much of this was the situation was very difficult for me, but there was so much built in for me that wasn't even of that relationship. It was just like the perfect container to activate everything that I wasn't really looking at and having activated. And so that was my opportunity, but it felt like hell, and then.
What a good way to put it.
I mean, she was also like graceful and amazing and always showed up, like you didn't have to show up with the level of, discomfort or pain, that was there for you. And from early on, I always had a sensing too, like there wasn't a full resolution in their relationship, even though, what he had communicated to me was that, things were clear, but like my intuition was, my instinct was very like, there isn't resolution here. And so it created this situation of, it was definitely uncomfortable because like we've always had the connection and the love. And there were a lot of things I think that went unspoken and we waited so long to finally just talk about it. Like it was so uncomfortable. And like, I mean, I can say for myself too, like the levels of guilt that I felt, like that was a lot for me, that I did a lot of processing with him, but never talked to you about. And finally, like, probably a year into his and my relationship, we all go back to Burning Man and we finally have this conversation that's like a really open and loving conversation. And in the moment, it was beautiful. And then the rest of that Burning Man, I could just feel his love and his attraction and his everything reawakening. So it felt like this beautiful moment. And
toward
then
you or toward her?
Towards Caitlyn. And then it just felt like it was like my container of this safety that I was, desiring was just like, it was being drawn, it was being drawn away. And so, from that point on, he got really, the beautiful thing about the dynamic with the three of us is every single relationship that I had prior had some level okay, minus like 1, had some level of dishonesty, betrayal, cheating. Like for me, I have the same wound, like not being chosen with every single one. There's always another woman. Like, why am I not enough for you to love? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with me? Like all these stories and the deep desire for redemption of those stories and to be chosen. And, so I mean, as much as it was difficult.
Yeah.
The truth was beautiful, and I was grateful for it, because in all the other situations I've experienced, it felt like getting haymakered from the right side, or like hit from a train that I didn't know was coming. You know, and those moments were brutal, and this was open and honest. It didn't make it any easier.
No.
So there was like the gratitude for the level of awareness that we could actually like have an authentic conversation. And, you know, and then we were in this dance of trying to navigate how to be in relationship with their, you know, attraction and their love that was there. And my feelings of, you know, I've never felt safe in love. And I don't believe that love is, you know, limited. And I understand, you know, like I have empathy for the love that you feel for each other. I don't think that it's wrong. You know,
I mean, like you're both badass. Like,
yeah. And
I love you.
but,
right? I mean,
but still to have my feelings of just threat to losing love, because that's literally all I've known. You know, it was a constant battle of you know, I would be in this place of my spiritual ideal that's like, love is love, and I can honor how you feel towards, and we were doing the work like constantly. We were doing ceremonies and we were sitting down having talks, and like we were really doing the work. And I was, you know, working with a spiritual mentor and having calls almost every week, and having calls with him and her, and trying to, you know, be able to like push my boundaries and get past my fears and trauma. But like my nervous system wasn't so in fight or flight all of the time, and just, you know, and constant, like we were never not in, there were very, very few small windows where it was just like fun and beautiful. And in those moments, it was like we were the magnetic pull of sisterhood. That is the truth of what we are. So it was confusing because there was so much conflict. And then if we had any kind of space or distance with each other, or any separation, it felt scary. And then the stories start coming up. And then how I've related and projected all of my trauma onto every single woman started happening here, where I didn't feel like I could trust her. And I felt like she was competing with me, but then I was also internally competing with her. And just all of, you know, all the sisterhood wounds, which for me stem from like, I have a little sister, and I could see in the process of the healing that and the work that was happening in the container of our 3-way dynamic, how much like for me, I had this story, like I had to compete for love. I had to be the best. I had to be perfect. I had to be the most beautiful. I had to be the smartest. I had to be a guy's girl that liked to watch sports and knew about sports. It's just like anything that I could do to be in this, like, to win. Exactly. To be in this level of superiority. Instead of actually just loving myself unconditionally, like that was my mechanism for how to get love. And it's what made me feel the most safe and in control. But so
and that was like,
instead of just leaning into trusting too, as we all know now.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I think that became, it was both sides. Like we were reluctant mirrors of so many very, very similar stories, wounds, projections. I think, you know, that drive to feel that the winning energy, it creates an obscurity from what's true for you. So you're willing to sit in what's not true, because it's like, well, I'm not going to be the one that fails at this. It's like it's like a standoff of like, and I was doing that too, but also noticing her doing it and kind of like subtly judging it. And it's so ugly. Like there's been so much, I shouldn't say it's ugly. It isn't, but the story is that it's ugly. And that subconscious assessment of like, oh, this is ugly energy just makes us even more blind to ourselves. Because it's like, I don't want to identify as being, jealous or competitive.
You're like what I mean. I think for both of us, there were so many levels of self-rejection.
Yes.
Like for me, because I was spiritually bypassing so much of my human emotion and the fear and threat that I was feeling, that it was like, I was actually sitting here in my humanness, but I'm reaching for here always. And this space in between that was unintegrated would show up as rage and anger. And sometimes I'd be totally fine and I would make commitments and I would say, I'm okay with this. And then when things would happen, it was just like, I would just, it was like my boundaries that I didn't know how to establish or that I didn't know existed would get crossed. And then I would just explode. And sometimes she was there and sometimes she wasn't. Most of the dynamic was between him and I. And there's always this really interesting energy though with getting angry, like something about the feminine and you and my love for you, like there was something just softer there. Like I didn't have as much as I felt, so many dark energies in the circumstance. Like I still always felt like I can't yell at her, be angry with her, like, project that out at her. It felt so wrong to me. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that highlights for me is I think like on the level of consciousness, we have these different levels that we're navigating and seeking to understand always. But there's like the projected expression, which is, this is how I should be. This is how I want to be. Beneath that is the truth of your humanness, right? There's like the rage. There's like that dissociated shadow part that's like, this is also true. This is also here. And you were angry with me plenty of times that you didn't give yourself, got kind of redirected towards him sometimes, or it was just, the consciousness was that it was about him and kind of like putting that darkness in the shadow towards me. But even under that always is this unconditional divine love that can empathize. Like we have the capacity. There's so many levels active at once, not all of which, and most of which are not conscious. But for all of us, there's human empathy. There's sisterhood empathy. There's the fact that we, in spite of our, human struggles, essentially understood that both of us had been through, and there's compassion in that. And there's the foundation of our sisterhood that it began with, that we could stand in, even if it felt really far away at certain times. And that shadow of rage, that was something, it's wild to kind of reflect on all of it, because I also did that with him, channeled a lot of anger towards him and went through, expressed in a lot more loving or just withdrawn. It was like loving or withdrawn.
Was he being honest with you guys? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that, like I think relatively speaking, there's levels of honesty. I think relatively speaking and maybe this isn't the way it should be looked at, he was very courageous in the things he would say and share and express when he would share them and express them. Mm-hmm. Our experiences were really different. I think there were shades of depth and truth that were not communicated. And usually my experience of that would be just the relationship would go silent or go distant for a long time. And, I would assume things were communicated that weren't. And so there was a lot of gray area. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of assuming.
Not a lot of clarity. There was not like clear, everything was very ambiguous. Yeah. I shouldn't say everything, like not everything that he was communicating, but the container was very ambiguous. So it was kind of like nobody really understood how to be in it, because it's just like, it's this wobbly line. And like, I don't know where the hell I am in relation to it.
Yeah. Relationship. That's like one of my things. Like, I'm like, I don't want to feel confused.
And I want to say like to his, or not even to his credit, to our compassion, like, and just to be like self-aware. I think a lot of us didn't ask. I think probably all of us didn't really directly ask for crystal clear truth, because it was like a felt sense that like, I don't really want to know, it was like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
I felt that in the dynamic, especially in myself. And I became really dissociated from the depth of their relationship because I was in my like tunnel vision with redemption. Like there's a deep connection here. I knew it, you know, I want it to come to actualization. And my desire was so strong. It was like, I started looking away from the true depth and commitment and totality. And when I would see it, it was not totally lost on me. Like I would do medicine work and I would see her. It would like all of the stories or projections or whatever would just go away. And I would see her in her beauty and her magnificence and her just absolute. I mean, I have these distinct, vivid memories of medicine journeys where it was like I could feel what it was like to love her through his eyes. And I was like, wow, like no wonder, you know, no wonder. But it was like in my ego, which was most of the time, I could not access that. And if I had, I would have let go. I wouldn't do that because I was so at that time and I had all the signs, you know, this is not for you. Let go. But what they were instincts, card pulling, the general dissonance that we experience every day. Like it's not working. That's a huge sign when it's just not working ever. But I was like, it's about to work though. There is heaven on the other side of this, hell for sure. And what ended up happening was I stuffed that and kept fighting for the thing I desired with my ego and looking away from the depth and the, you know, majesty that she was and that their container was holding. And it still makes me emotional to connect to it. I'm still working through forgiving myself and being in deeper integrity with just grace, with the fact that was the way things unfolded, because I can see clearly points of self-transgression that led to more suffering for everyone. And it ultimately led to me having a volcanic experience at Burning Man the following year, where I had waited and tried for a year and there was still disharmony. There was still challenge. There was still like dense energy in our field. And I ended up swinging into a lot of my addictive shadow behaviors in this sort of blaze of fuck you to the universe, to them, to everything that was my repressed truth. Like if I'd had the integrity to communicate my boundaries, communicate my feelings, and even be honest with myself was the main thing. It was not like I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I didn't have the willingness and the courage, I think, to really face it and to risk the loss of saying, this isn't working for me. And I know it's not, and it's not working for you guys. And I have enough love to step away. So I got myself to that boiling point of suppressing and inhibiting my truth until it erupted in this really dark, violent temper tantrum, essentially, that I don't even remember. I had indulged to the point of I lost my consciousness for a period of time. It felt like a weird dream and like a time lapse. And I had I remember little bits, like fragments of imagery. And there's still like, there's still a little shame there, you know, but the alchemy is to talk about it and be honest about it. And it's very much what happened. I just had an explosion. He said something that triggered to me when I was in that state. And I pushed the door down. I was flailing and cursing and all these things. And, you know, I wouldn't say it wasn't exactly like a fist fight between me or her. It was more of an explosion of me that everyone tried to, you know, defend against essentially for a moment. But it was very, it was a low point, one of the lowest points in my life. And it was devastating, you know.
It felt like, it was really interesting. Like as everything was happening, you know, like it just like it was, you know, on all ends, the volcanic eruption. And I had eruptions, you know, like yelling, and my thing was always like avoidance. So when I'd get pissed off, I'd just leave. And if he would try to follow me, I was brutal. And, like there were levels of my own expression of, what was under the surface for so long for me too. Like Burning Man is a ceremony.
It is.
And, but it was interesting, like after everything had happened, it almost felt like this energy release. And I had this crazy knowing, like it literally felt like a bomb. Like it was like the universe, like none of you are going to listen to yourselves and your needs and your boundaries. Like none of you are going to be honest with yourselves. Like here's this bomb and it's going to blow everything up. So you don't have a choice anymore.
Exactly.
Because it's just because it's continued for too long. And in this really weird way, it felt like it was divinely guided. Like it felt divinely orchestrated to me in this big way. Like it was the craziest thing that I've ever experienced, that I've ever expressed, that I've ever, it was.
You guys had spent so much energy.
Yeah.
And so much time.
And I mean, and it was
How can that not build up?
it was for a year. And it was, like both of us are very, very capable of seeing the high road, and the conscious path to take and how to be light and how to be loving and how to be, empathetic. And that's beautiful. But what was missing was just the brutal honesty of the situation and where we were at. And honestly, we couldn't even communicate that with each other at that point because we weren't even being honest with ourselves, because both of us knew. I mean, I knew after doing, after Burning Man, I spent, 6 months still with my former partner. And it was very, we were committed to peace, and it was like we were living our own sovereign life. It was kind of like we were friends, like we were roommates, but we were very much like in our own path, which was really beautiful and necessary. I'm totally brain farting on where the heck I was going with that point.
That's okay. We're talking about a blow up, though.
It just felt like it set this path that was just necessary for, now I remember, for me to really see clearly where I actually had boundaries, where I actually had very, very deep needs that I was so terrified of communicating because I knew the relationship would be over.
Yeah.
Because our needs were in conflict. Like we actually did this work with this one woman who works in, attachment theory, and she's a psychologist. And she basically told us, like, months before the Burning Man experience had happened, like your attachment styles and the level of threat that I was feeling constantly in the container, like there's no way to try to like immerse them into this compromised situation that just works. Like the way that, the way that the container is just it can't thrive, essentially. Like neither of us could be in thriving, with his desires for their relationship and like the threat that I was feeling. Like it just didn't work. And it took the blow up moment and then a lot of space because, he couldn't really be around me after that. And I went to, Bali, and I sat with Iboga, and, for the rest of our relationship, I was very much on this path of really harnessing, my sovereignty and taking back my authority in my life and getting really clear about who I was and what I wanted and the way I wanted to experience love and all these things. And, there was a beautiful intelligence in the way that everything happened. I won't go too far into detail and involve, other people in our social group. But had Burning Man not happened, there are all these strands that are so unbelievably clear to me that I don't know that I would have been open to my relationship with Aubrey had it not happened, had there not been the space from, so many things, the space between us, like the way that I continued to show up in my former partnership, and that didn't really shift, anything, and how I felt very resolute with after trying for, a long period of time after that it just wasn't, it felt like our soul contract was very complete, and what we were meant to teach each other was very complete. And then, like we didn't have communication for probably like 6 months. 6 months.
At least.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 months or so. And then, and for me, like, I think just on the other side of that experience, it was a reckoning with my truth. I think one thing I learned through that experience was like the healing to that's not to say that this can't work in this container, but the healing I needed for my wound of being chosen was not to be a secondary partner to somebody who was in deep commitment and lived, cohabiting with, the woman that he loved primarily. Like that, it was the nuke that had to happen because my ego was so fixated on that being, a viable possibility. And it's like, my soul's like, no, girl, and as Vi just, described, it was there when we zoom out of these catastrophic feeling events like heartbreak and loss and, total unraveling of relationships and even violence, all sorts of things in life. When we can zoom out to that soul level and look at the strands that are weaving, that's like, there's a gift somewhere. And these experiences, this relationship has been one of the strongest affirmers of that reality. I can stand in true faith and resilience to life now with curiosity about, okay, this feels like the end of the world. But I know now that all the ends of the world that I've experienced have woven me back into love and something greater. Mm-hmm. And that's something that softens everything in life. And it's been one of the gifts essentially of that entire experience. But I really learned a lot too about having the courage to communicate the vulnerable truth, my boundaries. That's been one of the greatest, the greatest lessons and teachings for me through this relationship and through the past couple of years. And then we, like I said earlier, she ends up entering into a relationship with one person that, I'm bound to enough that I'm like, all right, this is your chosen wife. I'm going to rethink like what I thought that we're sharing life together now. That's the reality of it. And so
did you have any reservations? I mean, like, did it come up for you when you were like, gosh?
No, I mean, I knew there would be a facing it, eventually. Yeah. Like I knew it. Mm-hmm. I know their love for each other, and it's one of the most beautiful, relationships. And I mean, it's Aubrey's, longest, like they're literally best friends and they're soul mm-hmm. family and allies, and they champion each other, and it's so needed. And I did a lot of work in the space that we had apart of getting right within myself in relation to her, because after the Burning Man experience, we left early, and that was brutal to have it wasn't really my choice. It was his choice, but we left early. And so I was very in this place of victimhood and feeling like all these things happened to me, also taking responsibility for my, level of co-creation and all of it. But, was in this space of just kind of moving through the darker feelings. And, and then I started this practice where I had written something to you, like I just free wrote, and it was all the things that were hard, and it was all the things I would say are ugly and dark. And then I would take a mala, and every single morning I would read it. And then I said these statements about forgiveness for all the ways that I have transgressed you, forgiveness for all the ways that I have felt betrayed, whatever it might have been. And then I would do Ho'oponopono. With every single bead on the mala. So I do it every single day, 108 times. And I spent a lot of time just doing the inner work. Like anytime I'm feeling judgmental thoughts or victimized, or like any energy with her that was dissonant and felt like it was taking up residence in my energy field that didn't feel like love. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like I'm committed to my joy, and I'm committed to peace. And whether we speak again or not, like I'm going to get right within me in relating to her. And so I did a lot of work there. And, I think you can do a lot of work to feel at peace with somebody, but the opportunity was really in seeing each other again. And, when we did for me, I can speak to my experience without feeling in competition or feeling threatened. It was so easy. Like so easy. The first time she came over, it was like, I mean, we did a lot of processing. Like, you know, we did ceremony together and we talked through like everything, like deeply ultimately after this.
But the first moment was, it really activated that love, that excited, warm love that was always underneath the competition, the jealousy, and the struggle. Like it just reactivated in my body. And I think that was one of the gifts of, like for anybody who's listening to this show, it's like we have an interesting and special circumstance where we've started as friends, had a soul resonance instantly, moved through these incredibly challenging and unimaginable circumstances that buried that. But it was always, and I think it existed from before we even realized it. Like that's what I speak to when it's like the soul path. And I think all of these, all of our relationships that are really meaningful to us have this sort of soul magnetism in them, but ours was really strong and really special. And I felt that right away. There were moments of, I think the one thing that I struggled with a lot because I didn't do as much work. I did, I journaled a lot. I processed, I grieved, that relationship after the Burning Man experience, but I didn't do as intentional work as Vylana just described. But, so I was still holding, what I can see now is I was still holding guilt, and guilt was and shame. And those are those are the most paralyzing and, life threatening, like from a mana stance, life threatening energies and emotions. And so I felt this opening and warmth and excitement and instant re-clicking. And it was fun. It was like relieving. It was like after all of this time, like this is available to us and we can enjoy it. And then I noticed, it periodically, and we got to do ceremony, grow together as, in service and in sisterhood and in our community, our tribe. But I, fear thoughts or like worries that if I felt like distance or if I felt, fear might crop up and say, can I really trust that she really loves me? That was attached to my guilt for how I had created pain for her, and working with that has been another layer of medicine of just, really dropping into the opportunities for us to have deep talks, to remember again and again, every time we're in those connective, high vibration experiences, that I can trust and I can forgive myself. And this is true. And this is here. Because, the projection of guilt was, I think, one of the long-standing barriers to love in our relationship for me, and that has just a lot of its integrity work of, how can I be more truthful with myself, with the other person? How can I be brave enough to have conversations that address my fears? How can I have, channel that unconditional and love enough to lean in when I feel fear? Because a lot of time in relationship, when we feel that fear, we retract, and that's what we had done before. And so it's like taking the extra step to lean in and offer love and connection. And it's bound us in such a beautiful way.
And to really listen and not let it affect you in a personal way, I guess, as far as when you're telling the other person that.
Oh yeah. I had a really cool moment with her recently that it's so fascinating. She was speaking to me about the work she was doing at that time in our, a couple years ago in that relationship dynamic where she was working on softening her boundaries to accommodate the relationship. And as she was speaking, it was like this channel of power that was like, I have transgressed myself so much. And she was speaking on behalf of her former self, but it was like a channel of true fire that was like, I never got to see that. I never had, because it was either reactive or shielded. And interestingly, like, normally I might think that would bring up guilt for me. Like, and it did, it brought up some emotion. Like I felt like, wow, I can really connect to how you felt. Now I can really have compassion for you because I can feel what you're feeling and I can take responsibility for my, it is my responsibility if I'm in relationship with you to honor that, to acknowledge that, to feel that, to connect to it. Now I can connect to it. And there was a part of me that was like cheering, like, yeah, this is your power. This is your power. And it was so cool to feel that in me of just, for all of the struggle we went through to see myself as this cheerleader and witness to her becoming, because we have evolved so much since then. And I was just, my cells were cheering. I was like, yeah, girl, you were transgressed and I did it, but I am so excited for you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking, but it was a collaborative thing, but it was like, I can own that I was a part of that, and I can celebrate your evolution into your sovereign power, and with so much authenticity. It was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I love you.
I love you, Bobini.
Good Life clothing speaks to how we dress now. Because while we might not be dressing up, we still want to dress well. Good Life is American made from the finest, highest quality materials, and their core collection of premium essentials keeps you looking good and feeling great. And I know because I actually wear it. Good Life just opened a new store right here in Austin in the Domain North Side. And you can stop by that Austin location and get 20% off your entire purchase with my code AMY20. That's AMY20. And guess what? It's also valid on your entire purchase online at goodlifeclothing.com. Again, that code is AMY20, AMY20, and it's good here in Austin or at goodlifeclothing.com. Elevate your game with Good Life.
Yeah, it's been as I mentioned before, this relationship has mirrored my deepest sister wounds. I have very, very deep sister wounds, from, my little sister just even being born and being young and not being able to understand, family dynamics. And it's not even about love, but it's about like attention.
I have an older sister, actually,
the conflict energy. And my sister and I actually, when I was little, we hated each other. We weren't friends. We're so close now, but we weren't friends until I was probably like 24.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't, we lived apart. We could not stand each other. And so the whole time we were in this dance, I would always reflect on that. I know in a massive way, this is helping me to heal those wounded parts of my childhood. It's the perfect opportunity to be able to do that and to also just see myself in all the ways that I look away, in the anger, in the shadowy, expressions that aren't light and loving and compassionate and all of that. It's like those parts of myself I put in a box, and I made those not okay. And I rejected myself over and over and over again. I would go through a series of these medicine journeys where I would face off with that, and in the midst of everything, she would come up in my journey, and it was just like all the anger that I was shoving down and that was in my shadow would come up, and I'd be so confused by it because I knew I was having challenge, but I didn't consciously feel like there was love, and I felt competition, and I felt jealousy, and I felt fear when we weren't close to each other. But I didn't feel that deep anger. And when that would come up, it was my anger with the feminine from my whole life. And it was just helping me to continue to just shed all of these layers and to help me to integrate that so that I could actually move to a place of acceptance for my shadow and a place of love for that energy. Otherwise I'm going to continue to create situations where I'm rejecting myself, and I'm splitting off an aspect of me that really, really wants to come home and wants to be part of me and wants to be loved and wants to be seen and wants to be digested. And, this relationship has been the thing that has helped me with that the most, and just feeling like, as she said before, there's so much hope for the challenge that you go through. We went to the depths. I don't think we could have gone. I mean, unless we cut each other or something. Unless it went that far.
About as bad as it gets.
That
where
is
you can
crazy.
Still recover.
Yeah, it's as crazy as it gets. And then to just feel the levels of I feel with her, and I can just be totally authentic about this, since we're in absolute honesty. My former partner and I don't speak at all, and they still, have a friendship. And I've noticed myself sometimes, like, just knowing about their friendship, like having feelings that feel like old feelings, and what feels beautiful.
You can feel it in your body.
What it feels beautiful to me is the level of, this is my opportunity to love her unconditionally, no matter what. No matter how she wants to live her life, what she wants to do, like if she goes off her path, like no matter what happens with her, this is my opportunity to like be her ally and love her so unconditionally that she knows that level of love from the feminine and from somebody who she's been through so many things with. Like, I feel that, and it feels like soul work. And a massive integration for me. Yeah. And what I feel with her, even in the midst of the challenge, sometimes I would just laugh because, I have a hape practice that I do almost every day, and I get a lot of downloads and clarity around things. And I could always feel our souls dancing, They're like, we are drawing each other on a soul level. We are drawing each other in a very direct and fast way towards being in our power and being in our truth. So it's like the people that you go through the most challenge with, how loving is that on a soul level? Mm-hmm. What a gift they're giving you on a soul level. I always try to reorient myself to that, because I'm just like,
everything contains its pole. Like it's one of the laws of nature. You can't, to the depth or the extreme of the light is the depth of the darkness, and everything's bound in this way that has two sides to the coin. And it's built in. And so it's something we don't want to look at when we have a lot of resistance or struggle with somebody. And, and this has been, a fascinating teacher for me too, of unconditional love as well. There was watching her bloom into everything that she has over the past year, and letting that small me die. That's like, would use that as some sort of affirmation that she really was better than you, and like cleaning that out and letting it really open up into celebration. And it's really interesting, just connecting to her being with a former partner of mine. I had to do a lot of my own work, years ago when he entered into his subsequent partnership, when I was still really hurting over the end of that relationship. And I did a lot of work and practice into reorienting to unconditional love and allowing and embracing the transformed relationship. We get attached to the old dynamics, and your body remembers the old systems and dynamics of relationship too. So like Fi's just describing, those activations, not to bypass them as, non-real now. They are, when they're active, they're real, they're alive, but the body and, the emotional body and the physical body hold all of this memory about previous experiences, especially in relationship to certain people where you had the felt experience. So it takes conscious work, and it takes that unconditional love commitment to recognize it and reorient. This is my opportunity to practice unconditional love. And then, really feeling that. I was recognizing something really interesting, just speaking to sisterhood. My little sister, I have 4 sisters, so lots of sister energy here for us to work through. But my little sister was beat up by another girl in the 8th grade really badly. And I was so angry at this girl. I didn't even know who she was. She came home just totally beat up and swollen and busted. And it sat with me for years. Like this, I was just horrified that this has happened to her. And this past year, my dad passed away. And evidently this girl reached out. This is, 16 years later, reached out to my sister and had apologized for doing that, and had gone on this pilgrimage with her family this summer and took a photo of my family everywhere that she went. So my dad would get to go to all of those places he never got to go, and talk about alchemy. And I was feeling into like the guilt that I held, and like how much, just tracking the frequency of when I show up in my expression with somebody who's challenged me, who I have guilt with or shame with. And if I'm expressing love from a place of guilt, like, I'm so sorry I was that way, let me atone by pretending to be loving. It's like, that's that consciousness that I want to bring into everything where there's gray area for myself, of really like, am I moving from love? Am I expressing from love? Am I, not atoning with the frequency of guilt built into my gestures and my, expression? And so that was something that just sparked for me recently. As we came into the show, I was like, oh, that's been part of the work for me, is coming back into relationship with Vi and holding the shame and guilt that I had, and having to track where I was still being the small, ashamed girl, and allowing myself to open up into true championing and like, and authenticity and vulnerability from a place of unconditional love has been a big part of my work.
Because underneath that shame is like just the fear again, right? Like of not being accepted and not being able to speak your truth and being rejection.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think in female friendships, we can just so much. I thought of a couple of my own. Feel a little emotional. And, it's just, you were both willing to step up and be there and show up for each other. And that's really beautiful. And sometimes, you can have those run-ins in your life with people, and those things come up, and the other person's not going to step up.
Yeah. I have friendships that ended and just ended. And I think there's levels of discernment of like, we're on a very, very, similar path of service and what we're here, how we're here to show up in the world. And there's so many, exactly. And so, there's also the level of discernment of when you're evolving out of relationships that are just not really in alignment with you anymore. There's also, there's so there's
both. Good way to put it.
There's both, because sometimes, people just aren't on the same path of acceleration as you. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're their own sovereign expression. But I guess for myself, I'm selective about the energy that I surround myself with. And I desire, the love and reciprocity in a certain way that if that doesn't feel like it's there, I've learned the hard way that, it's important to have that boundary of, this is the energy that I allowed in my space.
Well, I think, we could want to force it sometimes or something, or like come from this place of, I must make this right or something.
Or there's that. They've been my friend for so long, my whole life. And, and so you feel like this obligation kind of energy that's tough.
Rather than an allowing and letting go.
I think
one spaces that you need to.
One helpful just framework to apply to any relationship in question or relationship in transition or challenges, just knowing where your edge is at. If you're feeling attacked, and by edge, I mean kind of like your attachment. If your attachment is resistance, like fuck them, I'm done, look at that and ask yourself, where am I being really attached here when there's possibility for something different? And if the edge of attachment is with devotion, like, well, I have to make up with them. I have to make this right. I need to hold on to that. And that helps you find your growth. That's really where we can dance with and like actually transform through these experiences instead of repeating them over and over again.
For sure.
I think that's what I wanted to bring out. Like, what other lessons, like, and where have you taken it? So, and sisterhood is so
juicy.
It is. So
when we did that shame exercise in Costa Rica, and I really looked at like my own shame around some things, and the one person that kept coming up was my sister, and I was like, wow. And I had to come home and have a really honest conversation with her, and I feel like it pushed us to grow in a way that really needed to happen. And I even told her, I was like, I don't know why, but it's you that I feel this around, and it's just that dynamic that is so ingrained.
Yeah. I definitely have felt a lot of shame and guilt around my relating to my younger sister when I was little. But the things, the thing that I've taken with it, from this, the greatest thing is just one of the highest expressions of love that I've known, and it's solidified this sense of hope that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we can, come back together after everything that we've been through and literally feel magnetic, like, when we're together and we're dancing or doing whatever, it literally feels like we're like Romeo and Michelle. Like it feels like we're happening and everything else is kind of like blurred, and
Romeo and Michelle have a fallout and they get back together.
Exactly. See,
I'm the Mary.
I'm the Mary. Oh my God.
But they can't be separated. Yeah. They're meant to be together.
Yeah. And it's just like it in its own way, it feels like it's a union, like, and in this relationship and the level of safety and trust and truly being seen, like, one of the things that she mentioned about our dynamic in the beginning was, being a teacher. It's like, I learn so much from the wisdom that comes through her, and I'm in awe of her expression, and I champion, literally everything. And it's different loving a woman, It's a different thing to love and be loved by a woman. There's a magnetism to it that's like nothing else. Like my relationship with my husband is unreal. It's unimaginable and so full of love. And it's just a different thing. It's just a different frequency that can't be, filled by that same dynamic with the masculine. Like it's something that I need, I truly, truly need, and I really choose in my life. And it's helped me to, call in. I've always felt like I haven't ever really felt safe with women or like comfortable necessarily. So like I can get along with people and have fun and have conversations, but like people that are actually close to me, I've always had maybe like one or two friends, even with our former friend group. Like I always just felt like kind of, I don't know, like I didn't really fit or how to be. And from the healing of this relationship, it's like I'm surrounded by so many women that I love so deeply and that see me so clearly and that hold me and that make me feel so unbelievably safe. Like it's and it just feels like it's now, this level of love that we're expressing here feels like it's a magnet. It's like, oh, so this is how you operate in this really high frequency. Let me bring more. And it's now to the point where it's like our community almost feels overwhelming to like keep in touch with all these people that I love so much. But it's just, it's really, my healing with you and my healing with the masculine with my husband, Aubrey, has just completely changed the whole picture of my entire life, to be just so much, it's just so much love. I'm so happy all the time. And life is so fun.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah. But it's like,
be in that space of love.
Yeah. And to just know, for everyone that's listening, like we've been through it. We've been through darkness. And like I lived a life of immense pain since, being a young girl when my parents got a divorce till being with Aubrey. We've only been together 1.5 years. And like, there was a lot of pain, and there's still things that still come up for me to process and let go of. But like the beauty on the other side of it is so worth it. If you do the work, it's so worth it. Like sitting here in this chair, reflecting on where our lives are at. It's freaking unreal. And honestly, I tell Aubrey all the time, like I would do it all over again to get here. And I've only known this for like 1.5 years.
Yeah.
I've only known this level of bliss for 1.5 years. Before that, I went through really, really a lot of challenge to the point where like at times in my life, I was suicidal. Like it's too painful. Like I love so much. And I feel like I just get obliterated and I don't know how to operate in this density, and on the other side of it is exquisite beauty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has been, it's, our relationships are often our sadhana, our spiritual practice, in that endurance and faith that, I think faith really comes with true faith, comes with some felt experience. These challenges that have delivered me into abundance and grace, like I said earlier, give me so much faith to stand in for the rest of my life, and curiosity, like just enough that whatever. And I feel myself, on the other side of a lot of challenge at this point, knowing more will come, knowing this is life, more will come. So enjoy it while it's here, enjoy the grace, enjoy the bliss, enjoy the abundance, and, hold that curiosity and that faith when it comes again, as it will. But, I think, for me, there's been so many gifts, in this relationship, and in many aspects of it, so many gifts of learning and self-discovery, that I would not have sought out on my own. I didn't even know to, it was through the magnifying glass of that relationship container and all of the dynamics that we navigated that I even discovered that I had things to look for and work on. So I couldn't have sought them out without that mirror. And, I think something worth just speaking to into the space is, when we're triggered by somebody, when there's the magnetism of jealousy or resistance or conflict or anything, that's actually pulling your energy together, there's a bond there, even though it may not feel like that, we're actually feeding a bond between, and there's a reason for it. And the reason is our jewel. It's up to us to ask and to find out what that is. And through the bond with me and Vi, I have unearthed so many jewels of just self-awareness and actually enjoying that. So like if I used to have sort of this, she's very polished, and I think of myself as like, and disciplined, and I think of myself as chaos. So we're very alike in some ways, and then very different in some ways that were really easy for both of us when we were in our competition dynamic to be like, I'm better because I'm this way. I was the free bird or whatever. And she was like devoted and poised and, composed and like really, really just beautiful looking all the time. And so, but I recognized through looking at that, like her perfection I was actually holding perfection in my shadow. It was something that I was not conscious of, and that's just one of many things through the mirror of our differences that I claim to be different. It was highlighting these aspects of self, like she talked about earlier, that had been not integrated into my consciousness. Like you actually are obsessively perfectionistic in many ways, and you are competitive, and you are, like there, and there's a quote that says the truth will set you free, but not until it's finished with you. And that's that tension is that essence. It's like, it's going to work with you until you see what spirit is inviting you to see, and you integrate it and love it and bring it home. So, and then of course, just, the grace, like she talked about the contrast. That's the other beauty of ascending from such a low depth. You can't even know the bliss, the contrast of bliss of arrival, if you haven't been to that depth. This would just be like, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a victory.
Yeah.
And it's a victory now. And that feels so rewarding and so good. Yeah.
And what happened when you were reflecting on it just the other day? You just had a moment. Wasn't it on your birthday or something? Had a moment where you were like 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. So my husband surprised me on this ridiculous, really incredible celebration for my birthday. And it was unreal. We were in the Exumas in the Bahamas on this beautiful boat, and just getting there and feeling how unimaginable. Like I would never imagine, I could never even fathom that in my life ever happening. It was also a celebration of for my husband who recently sold his business. But getting there, and I just remember looking at her and being like, not even 2 years ago, we were at Burning Man, getting in an explosive brawl in our RV. Not even 2 years ago, lowest point of both of our lives. And if you were to tell me then that we would be here, like thriving in so much love, having so much fun, feeling so safe with each other, like just where the level of where we're at. I mean, it's hard to even find words. I would be like, you're high. That's probably not going to happen, but I'll be curious. But okay. Like it was wild. Like, can you believe that? Not even 2 years ago.
Fast.
It's really fast. For everything that's happened, it's really, really fast.
Oh yeah. It's wild. It's amazing. And it just makes me,
but I think
makes me curious about like, okay, life, what else?
And I think there's a testament too, to, you know, the level of responsibility that we take for ourselves and our experience and the work that we put in. You know, it didn't come easy. It wasn't just like this shit thing happened and then, you know, and then I just did nothing and just did normal life. It's like we really went deep and did the work and, you know, showed up with courage to, you know, coming together again and finding love and having the authenticity that was needed to alchemize a lot of what we had been through. Like we stepped into the fire and we let it burn away everything that we had been so that we could rise like the phoenix in this beautiful,
you were gonna say when you were like,
we rose like peacocks.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say when you were like, if someone told me 2 years ago, I thought you were going to be like, oh, fuck, how much work am I going to have to do to get there?
Yeah. You know, it's been work, but it hasn't felt like
It was good work.
You know, it's just growth. It is like, it's different levels of illumination.
Yeah.
And that's really the work. We use that term work. Everyone does so often recently. And I think it kind of wraps it in like maybe the
negative
wrong
connotation.
Energy, because it doesn't have to be, one of the big jewels she shared with me wisdom wise a while back was just, shifting the prayer to, can please help my lessons be with ease and grace and
not
love.
learning through suffering anymore.
Yeah. And there was what it is.
Been. Yeah. There has been that too. Yeah. And I think when you're, also looking at, for both of us, I think I could speak for both of us, like that moment of rock bottom, hitting that was such a necessary step to be able to climb. You know what I mean? To be able to climb our way back up. And for me, there was no choice. It's like I refuse to continue walking through my life with so much suffering and tension and stress and I don't choose to live like this anymore. And with that came that prayer that actually did turn the learning into something that was really beautiful. And it's also, going into those depths of ourselves, it's how we can see other people, we can look at women who have been through something like this and be like, we know,
understand, and get it.
We see you, and the alchemy of it is your medicine to share with other people. It's why we can sit here and have this conversation and it be exciting and
Absolutely.
Transmuting.
This one, we've been looking a lot at this relationship and this conversation, as we should, but there's been so many other layers too. Like I think about that rock bottom moment at Burning Man, the thing I was the most ashamed of, and my turning point coming into coaching, really starting to step into serving the world from a pure place, was from sharing about that story on Aubrey's podcast about a month later. And I was so ashamed to. I cried on it, and I got so many people reached out after that and felt like gratitude that I had spoken about it. And I was horrified. And it lit something in me that gave me permission, just the alchemy of speaking it gave me permission to own it and to weave that into everything I do in service to people, and so when we can bring that out of each other, it's like, that's in me, that is me. And the intensity of the experience encouraged me to honor it by speaking it. And that actually helped people. And so it's so much bigger than this is huge. And it's so much bigger than us, all of it. And
that's why I wanted you guys to share it on the podcast because it's so important to share with other people when they hear it from you. Of course they're not perfect. And of course we all go through these same things that all resonate with our hearts and growth and how beautiful it can be on the other side.
Yeah. And to maintain that level of curiosity instead of having such a myopic view on, the situation that's like right here in front of you. Like, what is the soul's purview of what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
What is this calling you to? Like those are really important things to reflect on, as she just said.
You
And
forget every now and then when you're in the middle of it.
yeah,
Oh, for sure. As we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that you immediately called each other teachers. Like, what a cool thing to think. Like, yes, I'm learning from you. What can I learn? You said that to me once. You were like, this is all here for your learning and your unfolding. I think I was having a nervous breakdown. Sedona. And, and it's true. I've thought of you saying that many times, and it is. We're here for each other's unfolding. We're here to learn from you guys just sitting here right now. Like, I'm thinking of ways to apply this in female relationships that I haven't looked at it in that way. And I'm wondering why I haven't, So yeah. And what I need to learn, what they were teaching me.
Yeah.
So it's a really beautiful.
Yeah. And you can do it in relationship and you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
Like Vi was talking about, if we had never reconnected, she still would have done that work. And I trust myself that in my more gradual nature, I would have done all of the work too. I had done some, and then I learned through that, like how motivated I am to really process and come into integrity with my own healing for myself and on a soul level. It does affect the relationship. You think you're doing it just for you when you don't have the opportunity. We don't always get the opportunity to work through things together. It impacts that frequency between you and the other person, whether or not they are involved.
If you think about like any relationship as a bridge, like even if you're not crossing the bridge anymore, you're still sending signals out that their soul, that their energy field, that they're knowing, we're all interconnected. So like they're feeling, if you're sending somebody like judgment and, projection and anger, you're putting it out there and they can sense it. And if you're sending out love, even to someone that, you don't speak to anymore, like they also can feel that on some, it might be unconscious, but like it's in the,
and the whole web of life can too. That is absolutely true with the bridge. I love that symbol between two people. It always exists. And then there's also the web of life that's responding and absorbing everything that you're holding. And it's not to be always in a positive integrity with what you truly feel is the vibration of love. It's truth. You're being in truth. So if you're really feeling angry or pain or, be in truth and honor yourself. And then you're in the vibration of honor, and integrity. But thinking about just the whole web as well, like how are we carrying how we relate to other people and acknowledging that has an impact on everything. Yeah. And really bringing that into the inner work that we do with ourselves in processing our relationships and allowing them to evolve and to heal. It's not only for us and it's not only for the other person. It's for all of us.
It's for everything. All of us. It's a collective.
And really those times that we're hurt. I know when I just went through some stuff and I was angry, I just forced myself to sit there for a while. And I was like, why am I angry? And I was like, what's underneath this? And the longer I sat with it, I was like, it's because I'm sad, because I love, because, there's that hurt. And so you can just sit with it for a little while. Usually there's that element of love, like you were saying, was deeply within you guys. And so, I forgot where I was
pretty much always though. Yeah. That's it's so important to touch on that. Yeah. Like even with fear, why is there fear? Because there's love.
You're afraid of losing love. Yeah. Like the thing that's actually the scariest is when somebody is indifferent, Yeah. Because then you're not,
there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
It kind of highlights that just love creates all of the virtually all of experience.
It's like the fear.
Indifference is nothing.
The fear of losing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is always underneath. Like that was the big lesson for me in integrating my anger and my rage is when I, went and sat with a boga, and it felt like it really reset my nervous system. So I had enough space to actually be with the vulnerable emotions that the anger was protecting. It's fear. It's fear of losing love. The threat is fear of losing love. Like all of these things are fear of losing love. You're
going to be the one that's rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm the one that doesn't matter. I'm the one that's unloved.
Juicy.
It is. It's so good. And this was so incredible.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that you guys.
Yeah, this is the first time we've like really spoken to it.
Exclusive.
This is exclusive.
I knew.
We gave a little
drop.
breadcrumb at the Fit for Service Summit. Everyone was like, "What? That was you guys?" We're like, "Yeah." We're sitting here just like locked arms and smiling.
Thank you for inviting us to speak about it. It's still, we talk together, but it's healing and interesting to put it out there.
Yeah.
And it's part of our path that I knew we would come to. So it's a special experience to get to really talk about these things.
And it's recorded. You can go back and listen to it and reflect on it even more, which is really cool. And there's so much wisdom that can be shared with so many people. And I am just honored to raise your voices and this story that is so powerful and meaningful and impactful, to anyone, I think. And so anyway, I knew it would be. And I just saw this as we planned it. I was like, just trust. Because it's these two goddesses. It's going to be great. So thank you.
I love it. I could sit here and talk to you guys.
I know.
all day long.
I can too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amy.
Do you have
Thank
anything
my
else you
girl.
want to share before we go? Anything that you want to like reiterate or just like something that comes to mind that you really want to speak about before we wrap up?
I imagine a lot of people have more questions after listening to this, but I hope actually, I think that would be great. And I hope it sparks a lot of just self like introspection and self-examination in a really healthy, exciting way.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of this, if we allow it, like I said about work, if we allow it to be exciting and illuminating, it's like we can just shift to gratitude for so many things and just discover so much more about ourselves and the abundance and the majesty that's on the other side of this, of some of our most challenging relationship dynamics. So yeah, just if anybody has questions or, I'd love to get feedback on social media or whatever, and continue the conversation in a way that can really support particularly women in repairing. I think a lot of what we're holding collectively as women, this is generational upon generational programming of relating, where we are oriented to prioritize the relationship with the romantic partner and not to look for the gifts and the value in our female relationships. And so when we can start to open that, it's really making a big shift collectively that's really important for the integration of our entire collective society.
And hugely and ancestral healing that is so necessary to rewrite these cycles and constructs, for our children who are going to come into the world and make a difference. That was really beautifully said. The thing that I would offer, one last thing is, if you feel like you have these cycles of relationships, with the feminine or the masculine, it doesn't matter. Notice that you're the common denominator through all of them. There's something in you that is attracting and co-creating these experiences with every single one. So if you're in a place of victimhood, like this always happens to me, and I'm speaking to this because that's how I used to feel before doing this ceremony about the sacred feminine, and recognizing like I am the common thread between these all. So like, what is it about me that is creating these situations? And if you're sitting in a place of victimhood, you're completely not in your authority. You're not empowered at all to do really anything but to just kind of like flow with whatever life wants to throw out at you. But if you stand from a place of responsibility and acknowledgement and a deep reflection of what it is within you that is creating these situations, you have the ability to shift and change and rewrite your reality. Like you are the co-creator of your life. You're not a victim to anything happening. There's some soul level, nudge in everything that you experience. So just really getting deep. If you feel like you're in a place of, I always have these challenged relationships with women, and there's always betrayal, and like, why, what, do
even just saying those things and believing those things, you're
magnetizing it. Yeah.
Yes.
But just to get curious. Curiosity is the best thing, because it's not like, now turn on yourself and be like, oh, I suck and I'm doing everything wrong. Like that's not the way that you want to go, but just have curiosity around this is fascinating to me that I see this thread that continues to happen over and over and over again. For me, I tracked it back to relating with my mother and sister, and these stories that I was holding unconsciously that would trigger thought patterns. And, it would just turn into these spirals of creating my reality through this lens that was not helpful or thriving or loving. So just getting really, really curious and reflecting on what it is within you that's creating the experience that you don't want. Because if you take responsibility for it, you're in authority. And then life is like, oh, now I'm a creator. I'm no longer a victim. I'm the creator. And that makes life exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Very.
Thank you for voicing that. I think it's
Thank you.
one of the biggest gems.
You guys are so badass. I'm so thrilled to know you. And
we love you.
I love you too. So much. So much.
I love you, Bobby.
Sisters. So thank you.
Sisterhood right here.
I encourage everyone to follow you on social media. Of course, Vylana Marcus and the Poet Queen. We'll have links everywhere, and hopefully the dialogue will continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Thank
anyone
you.
has any questions, they can always reach out to me too. So
beautiful.
yeah, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you so much.
Thank you for
I
sharing.
love you.
Oh my God.
Love you guys.
Yay. Thank you so much to Caitlyn and Vylana for all that they shared today. If you want to reach out like Caitlyn suggested and Vylana suggested, please do to their social medias. Again, Caitlyn's available at The Poet Queen and Vylana at her name, Vylana Marcus and Marcus. And I was just left so struck by the work that we can do on our own, and what both of them said at the end was especially poignant, that we do have a lot of healing to do from all the things that have gone on, like Caitlyn said. And then what Vylana said about the bridge, about how we can just show up, and we don't have any control of what someone else does anyway. So, just showing up and knowing that you are living in your highest self and in your highest version, and extending that bridge the way that you can, and putting out those frequencies and those vibrations and those loving ways, like that is living in your highest truth. And that is coming from your best self. And that's really what it's all about. And we're going to learn from just doing that and be able to use that down the road in other relationships, when other things come up, when that person does show up, perhaps. And I know I'm going to be doing the work and taking this to heart over the next week or so. So next week, I will definitely address this too, because it's been really, or in my newsletter, I think I might do that too. So definitely sign up for that, Amy at amyedwards.com, because I'm definitely going to be sitting with this and sharing more in that newsletter. So I hope to connect with you there as well. And remember, you can always email me too, Amy at amyedwards.com. I'd love to hear from you. I guess that's it as far as business. Just big thanks to those ladies. Thanks to everyone here at Hot Pie Media and to our crew and to Sarah, who was here for us today and recorded and even said she took notes. And I agree. Like it is something I want to listen back to, because there's so much wisdom in there and so many jewels, as they called them. So thank you so much for being here. You can find me on social media too if you want to. I'm at Real Amy Edwards, and just know that I am like immensely grateful to be sitting here and having these conversations and helping us all rock higher, raise our vibrations, and live our best versions. Not perfection. It's about progress. Damn Right. So thank you again for being here. Much peace and love and health and wealth and abundance and joy and divinity and sisterhood and beauty and light and shininess and all the good stuff to you and yours. Till next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this show, please rate and review. It totally matters. And I encourage you to spread the love too and share this episode with a friend if you feel called. Find me and my newsletter sign up at amyedwards.com. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at RealAmyEdwards or in Clubhouse at Amy Edwards, or write to me. It's amy@amyedwards.com.